I'm so excited because tomorrow I'm going to be getting a new pet. A lot of people ask me if there's pets that I want to buy or that I'm going to buy, and I don't really discuss it. The main reason being that, one, I don't get pets very often, so it's not like a very common occurrence. The last time I got an animal was my sugar gliders back in March, and I already had sugar gliders before. I just ended up getting 2 additional ones. And the last time I got a new species, which was my sugar gliders, was over a year and a half ago. Even though there are so many animals that I do want, my first priority is to care for the ones I have and to make sure that all my animals are completely upgraded and have a bunch of enrichment and are living to the fullest extent. Then is when I try to consider other pets that could possibly work in my lifestyle. So hopefully everything's going to work out and I'm going to get to bring this new pet tomorrow. Just wanted to check in on all my current animals first before I close up for the night. I did want to clean the rabbit room, but I was a little bit lazy. I cleaned it last night, so it's really not messy at all. They are really good about using their litter box now, especially ever since I free roamed, they've been even better about it. So since everything looks good in here, I'm going to set up for when we're going to go out tomorrow and go get my new addition. This is my first time ever having a reptile, and their care and even their transport is so different than mammals. We are getting him locally, so I don't have to worry about him being shipped. I'm going to bring him home in this little container here. You don't really want to transport them inside their cage because there's a lot of things that are moving inside of their cage, and that can just be really overwhelming. So I have this little container here. I just added some paper towels because it's probably pretty likely he's going to pee and poop from the stress of driving. I also have this canvas bag that I'm going to put this inside of just to make it a little bit darker. This is a nocturnal species, so that'll hopefully give him a little bit of privacy and make him feel less stressed about everything. With reptiles, from my understanding, you really don't want to add a lot of stuff in their transport. It's only going to be about 45 minutes drive, so it's not too long. And if you want to overcrowd it with things like water, hides, and things, so they're just more of a risk that could potentially hit them if the car moves or breaks. So just to keep everything safe, it's going to be a completely empty tank and this little bag. Okay, I'm going to see you guys tomorrow when we're on our way to get him. I'm so excited. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm literally so excited. Okay, so we just got the gecko and I'm super excited. I wanted to hold him in there, but then I got super scared and I just had him put it inside the carrier for me. I'm talking to my YouTube channel.
YouTube channel, famous subscriber.
Shut up. Okay, well, I got my gecko and I'm super excited. I'll be sure to do updates once he's home. I've always seen 18 by 18 by 24s on YouTube and I never thought they looked that big. And I have one now and it's way bigger than I was expecting. Okay, we're home. This is his enclosure setup. This is not the final setup, but I just kind of want to keep things consistent to how he was used to. So I have 2 cork logs over there. I have these mossy tree branch things. In the back is a little bit of foliage, and then there's this huge hide thingy that he can also climb on. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to spray over the tank ones because it looks quite dry. And I was probably a little overcautious, but I literally asked the person who I was getting him from if he could give me the water that he had been using for him. So it's going to be the exact same. I'm going to spray it down really well. I also want to add some in his water dish as well. So we'll spray it down and then I'll be back when I'm going to let him in. So this is him. And I just misted down the enclosure. The humidity is up according to the hydrometer at about almost 60%. These guys have pretty sensitive respiratory systems compared to a crested gecko. So usually most people mist them once in the night, get it up to 80% and let it dry out during the day. So I think this is a good humidity to have now when it's still during the day. And I guess we're gonna let him in the enclosure now. Before we do that, I'll give y'all a good look of him. This is how he is. I wish I brought a smaller container. I was worried that this might be too tall, but I thought he would need this length, but he's so tiny and he's so adorable. He's in the enclosure. I just added him in and I shut the door. I didn't want to force him to come out because it's probably really stressful to have been in a car for around 45 minutes. So I'm just going to let him settle in and come out on his own terms. I'm going to leave, which is really hard because I just want to stay and watch him, but it'll be good if I leave, give him some space to do his own thing, and then hopefully he'll get a chance to explore around the cage a little bit and get comfortable. So to finish off this vlog, I just want to show you guys him a little bit more closer up and explain about him. I've been trying to avoid saying what species he is. He is a Rhacodactylus leachianus. Their common name is the giant New Caledonian gecko, but most people just call them leachies or leachianus. I got him rehomed, but he initially came from Leaping Leachies from Steve Camelli's line. He is a Type C Grand Terra locale. The GT locale is from the mainland of the island, and it's also the biggest locale. They can also be the meanest, so I'm hoping that he's going to be a little bit nicer when he grows up. But for the most part, they are just cage territorial, and once you get them out, they tend to do okay. He's also a Type C. Some people say that the typing system is outdated, but other people still use it. Type A are the largest types, but they usually don't have great patterning. Type B are a little bit smaller, and they do have really good patterning. And Type C, there was one pair that was imported, and they were really big and had really big colors. So all Type C come from that initial pair. He's about a year old, but he's a little bit underweight, so I'm going to try to fatten him up. Currently, he's on Steve Camelli's diet, which is called Lychee Linguine, which is what he feeds to all his leachianus. But I also heard that sometimes the pickiest eaters don't love it, so I'm going to try some different Pangea and Repashy options. But actually, he seems to be eating the Lychee Linguine pretty well. The other owner said that he wasn't eating great for him, so maybe he's just in a less stressful situation here. Or maybe I'm just spoiling him because I spoon-fed him quite a bit. His enclosure is an 18 by 18 by 24. Some people say that that's a little bit too big for a yearling, but I really wanted to try it out and keep a more naturalistic setup. So far, he does seem to be eating and being able to find in food and water, but if I do notice that he isn't growing and he isn't putting on the weight, then I can downgrade him into a tub setup until he starts to get more plump. This is my first reptile, and even though I've done a lot of research, it's very different in practicality to own one of these guys. I'm not saying that I'm going to do everything perfect, but I'm going to try my best, and if you have any advice or tips for me, please let me know. In terms for long-term plans, I think for the foreseeable future, he is going to be in the 18 by 18 by 24 until he gets a little bit bigger. I would like to upgrade him into a really nice bioactive planted tank, but since I'm so new to reptiles and bioactivity is kind of a whole thing to tackle on its own, I want to first get familiar with him and owning him, and then I can try a bioactive setup. He's like completely out of shot now. There's his little leg. But he seems to be pretty friendly. He's not too vocal. I heard a lot of them get more vocal after puberty, so he might get vocal pretty soon since he's just a year old. I haven't tried handling him yet because my parents are really scared for me and I'm a little scared myself. So I'll definitely make a video on my first time handling him. But it is very different owning reptiles than mammals, so I just want to take it slow. Also, unlike most small mammals, you really don't want to rush anything with these guys. Most reptiles aren't super social and they can find human interaction. Even if they're tamed down, they can still find it pretty overwhelming. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. So I just want to make sure I'm taking it slow and not overwhelming him and giving him time to settle in. In regards to heating and lighting, these guys do really well in room temperature, and since we have really good temperatures in my area, which is about mid-70s to maybe a little bit upper, they honestly are a lot cooler than most reptiles just because of where they come from. I haven't needed to add any supplemental lighting, but that's always an option, maybe in winter. He currently isn't on any UVB or doesn't have any basking bulb, but I think that is something I'd like to experiment in the future. But for now, since I just got him literally a couple hours ago, I want to just do everything the very conventional and traditional way. I'm sure a lot of you will be wondering if I'd want to keep him in my pet room, since most people like to have all their animals in one part of the house. I have a whole rant video on pet rooms and why I don't love the concept of them, so be sure to check that out. But in short, the main reason I use my pet room for my rabbits and my sugar gliders is just the convenience of it, not necessarily having them in the same place, but how easily I can let them out for free roam time in a completely safe area. Currently, he's like in the living room, family room area. I guess you would call it the formal living room. I don't understand American houses and how they all have 2 living rooms. I think it's a little bit weird, but he's in one of the living rooms. It's also crazy how they camouflage. I don't know if you guys can see that little worm looking thing. That's his tail. When we first got him, I put him in his cage and then we had to go out for a couple hours. And when I came home, I was looking all around and I legitimately couldn't see him. Even though he was just on top of a cork ground, he literally blends in so perfectly.
I'm sure a lot of you will be wondering why I decided on a Leachianus gecko, especially considering that most of my channel is small furry animals. To be honest, I've always thought reptiles were very fascinating and I always wanted to delve into reptile ownership, but as a newbie, it just felt very overwhelming. I love having a variety of animals and having the chance to learn about all of them. That's so weird. See, like he's trying to climb the glass like a sugar glider could never. Also, a lot of people don't realize this, but geckos and animals like that aren't just naturally sticky, and a lot of the times when they're younger, they can actually have a hard time climbing glass and smooth surfaces, which is what he's having right now. It's actually quite adorable. It's actually like little hairs on their toe pads that grip and ungrip, so it can take a little while to figure out how to use it and to get their full suction cup-like ability. I also want to make a whole video about how I research animals and decide what animals to get, because I feel like in the pet tube community, everyone always just says, make sure you research animals and make sure you find ones that you're passionate about, but no one really explains how to do that. I also think it would be fun to go over like the criteria list I set and why I decided that he'd be a good match. In regards to why I got a Leachianus gecko over the other more common New Caledonia geckos like crested or gargoyle or even Chihuahua gecko, I just wanted something that was a little bit different. I really love crested geckos and the look of them, but I just felt like they were very common, and I love having something that's a little bit more exotic. I'm also personally not the person who wants to have a lot of animals, just even whether or not they're crammed, I just never want to have that many animals. I feel like it would be very overwhelming and not that enjoyable, especially considering that most reptiles are solitary and you can only handle them one at a time. So I didn't want to have a huge collection, and for that I thought a Leachianus gecko would be perfect. I feel like having such a giant gecko would just satisfy all of my cravings and I wouldn't want to get any more. I did also really consider gargoyle geckos and Chihuahua geckos. I think gargoyle geckos are really adorable. They kind of look like little old men with their fat stomachs. But again, I felt like they were quite common, like a crested gecko. My main debate was between a Chihuahua gecko and a Leachianus gecko, but I decided on a Leachie mainly because Leachies are bigger. They tend to be a little bit calmer handlers, at least if you have a nice one. Chihuahuas are one of the most active New Caledonia geckos, and everyone says that they're the most fun to observe. But I was a little bit okay with having an animal that wasn't as fun to observe if it meant that it was a little bit easier to handle. Chihuahuas also tend to be a little bit more insectivorous, I hope I said that right, than some of the other geckos. So they love hunting insects, and that's something that I knew that I wouldn't be doing super often. So because of that, I decided to get a Leachie since they're pretty fat and lazy for the most part. So yeah, that's my gecko. Sorry I'm not handling him or anything. I just mainly want to respect my parents' wishes because they're convinced that a reptile is going to kill me just by touching me. But they did say okay to it. It's not like I did it behind their backs. And I think everyone just needs some time when you first buy an animal to warm up. I already love him so much. I think that he's stunning. He has a lot of pinks, and this is how he looks fired up. This is the first time that I've seen him at night, and he is literally so beautiful. He has all these pink splotches. I'm so excited for him to come into his true adult coloring. So that's everything. I really want to do a question and answer with him, so be sure to let me know if you guys have any specific questions about him. I know a lot of you might not be interested in reptiles, but I hope you can still appreciate him. He also has the cutest face, and he looks like he's smiling 24/7, so I know that you guys are going to love him as much as I do. So that's everything for this video. Bye!